Welcome back. Yes, hello everyone and welcome to Biggest Band In, the series where I explore the career of every state's most popular band in the United States. Obviously in the United States. Where else would it be? Now, if you're curious how I came up with the ranking for these, how I decided which band actually measured up to be the top band of that state, I didn't. I found an insider article on Yahoo News that did all of that for me, so I will link that in the description, and you can go bother that person about what they thought. It also lets you know what's coming up if you want spoilers, but I'm going to go at least a little more in depth than they do in the article. I think each band gets like a little paragraph. We're going to do a little more than that here. This is the inaugural episode, and since we're going in alphabetical order, that means today we're visiting the great state of Alabama. Alabama, the Yellowhammer State. Named such for its state bird, the yellowhammer, and no other reason. Don't look it up. It's also been known as the Heart of Dixie and the Cotton State. For those same reasons that you just don't have to look up, don't bother. You know already. A state famous for its iron and steel natural resources, southern hospitality, sweet tea, a bangin' college football team, and of course, every single joke that's ever been made about incest. This here is Alabama's state flag. I love it because it looks like a Confederate flag that went whoops, JK. The state reptile is the Alabama red-bellied cooter. Cooter is another name for a type of turtle. I didn't know that, and I'm not mature enough to handle that information. And of course, as you may have guessed, the most famous band to come out of this state... Hold on. The band Alabama. Yeah, it's just a band called Alabama. I too was shocked and dismayed that it was not Lynyrd Skynyrd, as they are one of the most well-known and famous bands in southern rock and country, and their most well-known and famous song they've written, arguably, is Sweet Home Alabama. And according to Wikipedia, at one time, the state slogan for the state of Alabama, the official slogan of the state, was Sweet Home Alabama. Apparently, Lynyrd Skynyrd's from Jacksonville, Florida. Gross. So let's dive in to the life and times of Alabama, or as I like to call them, the band who wasn't Lynyrd Skynyrd. In fact, they weren't even Alabama yet. Alabama began life as Wild Country, which, no disrespect to Alabama the state, on top of whatever disrespect I've already given, but that's a much cooler name. But hey, Wild Country didn't become the biggest band in Alabama. Alabama became the biggest band in Alabama. I'm starting to hate how many times I have to say Alabama in this video. Technically, their first name was Young Country, but they weren't an official band at that point. Wild Country is when things became legit. The story begins in Fort Payne in 1969, where Randy Owen, providing the rhythm guitar and lead vocals, teamed up with his cousin Teddy Gentry on bass. Eventually, they would team up with another cousin, Jeff Cook, to offer lead guitar skills. All of them had some previous brushes with being in bands before, none of them quite as successful as Alabama, as you might imagine. This initial trio was the birth of Young Country. Eventually, they would add Jackie Owen on drums, yet another cousin, because when you're Alabama, you keep it in the family. From what I can gather, the story of them coming together doesn't have a whole lot of flair. It was more just like, hey, Teddy, old boy, we sound pretty good. Maybe we should try to do this as a professional. I don't know what they sound like. I don't know what they had, but I'm almost certain that they sound like that. I'll find out.
When we were starting out, we had an apartment together down in Anniston, Alabama. Jeff had Bynum, Alabama. Jeff had a real job, and me and Randy were looking for work.
Now, Wikipedia says this formation won first place in a high school talent contest, and I'm not entirely sure how true that is, because if they had formed in 1969, that means they all would have been in their 20s, with the exception of Teddy, so maybe it was his high school, but I still kind of feel like that's cheating. Anyway, despite this initial glimmer of success, they went on a bit of a hiatus as Cook went to college and Owen went into the military. The break didn't last long, however, and after replacing Jackie Owen with Bennett Vartanian, that's a name, they started playing professionally, officially, now as Wild Country. For a while, they got a pretty cushy gig at Canyonland Theme Park in Fort Wayne, where they would play backing for other talents that the park had secured. Talents such as Jerry Wallace, Bobby Bare, and Narvel Felts. Narvel? Narvel? Then after the main draw finished their set, they would get their own sort of hour-long Sloppy Seconds dance set for everyone to go nuts on. Unfortunately, not too much came from this, and further prospects seemed pretty slim for the band. Staying afloat with meager night and weekend gigs when they could afford to do so because everyone was working other jobs. In March of 1973, they moved to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where they would perform 6 nights a week at a club called the Bowery. The Beatles had Hamburg, Alabama had Myrtle Beach. Now these boys grinded, but hitting it big still seemed like a pipe dream. Drummer Bennett left the group, and after cycling through 4 other drummers, they finally settled on Rick Scott in 1974. No, not that schmuck. That's the boy! All the while, the band sent out demo tapes to record company after record company, until finally, GRT record label gave them their big chance, and signed them to a 1-record contract. Gotta start somewhere. It was here, at the request of the record company, that the band changed their name to Alabama. Or, initially The Alabama Band, but then just shortened to Alabama. With their newfound label support, the band released their first single, I Wanna Be With You Tonight, in 1977. The song would go on to reach number 78 in the Billboard Hot Country Song Charts, which doesn't sound that impressive, but honestly, for only officially forming as a professionally performing band in 1972, to cracking the top 100 of their respective genre only 5 years later, I'd be pretty happy with that trajectory. I think that's pretty darn impressive. But this sure didn't stop GRT Records from going out of business literally the next fucking year. Now, the way I presented that makes it sound like it's the band's fault, but it's not. It's a whole host of other things for them. It's just kind of shitty timing on Alabama's part. But you know what's even shittier than that? A secret clause in their contract with GRT that prohibited them from being allowed to record with any other record label for 2 years. You would think once bankruptcy came into the picture, shit like that would be nullified, but... So their first 3 records, Wild Country in 76, Deuces Wild in 77, and their very cleverly titled third album, Alabama Band No. 3, were all self-produced. In that same year of 1979, with their third record, the band performed over 300 shows on the road, all while sending handwritten letters to program directors and DJs nationwide. All this dedication paid off when they caught the attention of MDJ Records, who eventually signed the band. At this point, Rick Scott, drummer, left the band, and was replaced by rock drummer Mark Herndon, who would later be credited with giving the band its sort of special sauce that helped them to explode into the mainstream. Under their new label, the band released their next single, My Home's in Alabama. This time, not only cracking the top 100, they cracked the top 20. This early chart success landed them a spot to perform on the New Faces show at Nashville's Country Radio Seminar. Other acts to the same performance included Reba McEntire. Their performance there caught the attention of several labels, not the least of which was behemoth RCA Records, who would steal them away from MDJ in April of 1980. Their first single with RCA, Tennessee River, would hit number 1. And it would actually be the first of over 30 Billboard Hot Country songs to top the charts in that number 1 spot. To quote Randy Owen, when it happened so fast we didn't have time to think. One day we were in Myrtle Beach, and a few days later we're on Dick Clark's American Bandstand. We were scared to death. It was amazing. The next thing you know, you're Group of the Year on nationwide TV. I'll be honest, I had never really heard of this band before I started making this video. Country music is not my genre, and I can never really pretend like it is. I know it's a genre that rubs a lot of people the wrong way. I can't even count the amount of people I've asked, what kind of music do you like? And they'll respond with, oh, anything but country. You, I'm sure, have heard people say that yourself. You've maybe even said that yourself. I know I have. Even so, this band is one of the biggest and most influential in the genre. And with all the jokes I've made, there's certainly something admirable about a group of folks who just believe in what they have and just continue to push through until they finally achieve that success that they feel they're due. Truthfully, I mean, I went and looked up some songs, obviously, in preparation for this, the big singles too. I'm like, there has to be, with this many number 1 hits, there has to be something I've heard. There's got to be something out there that I've run into without just knowing. I just didn't know it was that band. And no, I can't say I've ever heard a single song from these guys. So it's really, this is a country band for country fans, and it's not really where I sit. So I can't pretend at the end of this as if now I'm a fan of the band Alabama, but I also can't pretend like I don't have a newfound respect for this bunch of Alabama boys who just stuck it out until they finally hit it big. You know, you gotta admire that. You gotta admire that grit. I'm saying this with absolutely no knowledge or understanding of who they are in their personal lives. I have not looked into it that far, so I don't know what they subscribe to personally, but as far as their music, good for them. I'm glad they got the success that they had. And despite being somewhat overshadowed by a band in Jacksonville, Florida, there's certainly something to be said for persistence, right? Well, that concludes this episode. Any of you out there, do you know this band? Are you familiar with them? What's your favorite songs from them? Leave a comment below. And I would also like, if you're in Alabama, go ahead and throw me some of the small bands. Throw me local bands. Throw me your band if you're an Alabama band, because I would also love to do a series on smaller, more sort of localized bands from each state as well. So yeah, comment below, and I'll start making complimentary videos for each state on local bands that I dig. All of my socials are down in the description. The next state we're going to be visiting is Alaska, so go ahead and subscribe if you're interested in that, or any other state down the line. You don't want to miss any of these. Go ahead and throw a like on the video if you like the video. Go check out the Patreon. Help me out to make this an official thing that I'm doing. And I suppose that's all. Thanks for sticking around, y'all. Later.